welcome back to Civ Fanatics Ultimate Strategy Guide for Prince level players. In this episode, we're going to talk about the Wonder Race. Wonders are important. They give you a lot of benefits that you can't necessarily get any other way. What I recommend doing is taking the time, going into the Civlopedia and, studying what the different wonders are, what they do, what they can do for you, so that you can make intelligent decisions about what wonders to pursue. Different situations are going to prompt you into, or should prompt you into, pursuing different sets of wonders. And I'll give you an example. The other day I was playing in a four person game, and it was on a tiny map. One player quit early. By turn 50, he just unannounced. As far as I know, it was unprompted. I don't think anybody tried to attack him or he tried to attack anybody. He just quit. But by turn 100, I started looking at the demographics, and up until that point, I was number one in science. Manufactured goods, I was number one. Population, I was head to head with one of the with America, but I'm okay with that. As far as population, manufactured goods, soldiers, and literacy, I just want to be at least competitive by turn 100. I don't necessarily, I'm not necessarily disappointed if I'm not running away with the game by that point. Matter of fact, I don't want to be. I want other players to be able to compete with me because it's more fun. But what I found by about turn 120, I had been number one all the way up to that point in the game and in science. And all of a sudden, turn 120, I look at the demographics and I see the literacy, and I'm number two. I'm number two in literacy, and the number one slot is 6 or 7 points ahead of me. And it just happened out of the blue. To this day, I still don't know how he accomplished that, because that is amazing to go from being number one in literacy to being 6 or 7 points behind, just like that, in just like over the period of a few turns, is just unheard of. I've never seen that happen before. And the only thing I could figure, because there were no research policies going on, no research RAs were happening. So how did he accomplish that? I wish I knew. I even asked him after the game was over how he pulled that off, and he couldn't really. He said, all he said was, "Well, I just kept my food focus, or my cities on food focus, the entire game." And he also, in this game, because the map was so small, I couldn't get more than 3 cities, but neither could he. America got 3 good cities and then 1 really bad 4th city. And the AI, the player that ended up being the AI, really didn't have much better going on than that either. So, we were both at 3 cities, and he pursued the Great Library right away. He went, pottery, writing, Great Library, and got it. And he was building wonders left and right. and so and getting them. So I think that was how he got this one, the National Epic, or no, he got the Oracle, which gave a great scientist point. Great library gave a great scientist point. He got Hagia Sophia, 25 generation of great people in all cities. I think he did get Chichen Itza, Machu Picchu. He got that one. So he was getting a lot of wonders, and I think that's how I ended up getting Notre Dame, and he did get Porcelain Tower. So this is, which is great, two great scientist points. So this is how he was able to pull that off, because there was only 4 players in the game, and he was getting all of these wonders, which greatly enhanced his ability to produce great scientists. And he, obviously kept turning them in as soon as they come out, and that's how he was able to compete with me. So great wonders can be very powerful. Now, I ended up winning that game. I shouldn't have, but the way that I ended up winning that game was also through wonders. But I started choosing when I started realizing this, I was also at the point in the game, and we were about somewhere in the medieval era, and the AI was starting to build up forces. So I was pursuing, at the time, military techs, so that if the AI decided to attack me, I would have, the ability to defend myself. But when I started to realize how well he was doing in science, because of all the techs and the wonders that he had gotten, I started to realize that I needed to drastically change my approach. So what did I do? Well, I couldn't do anything immediately because I had already started pursuing these military techs down here. So I abandoned that strategy. I stopped pursuing those techs, and I started progressing toward scientific theory. That was my new goal, is to progress toward that, knowing that along the way there were some wonders that I could pick up that I could use to counter what he was doing. I picked up Notre Dame because my happiness was an issue. I picked up Sistine Chapel because I wanted the culture. You get 25 culture in all cities, 25%. What else did I pursue? Let's see. The Louvre, I pursued that one because it was, right along my path. I got the public schools to help me build my science. I got those as fast as I could. And as the game progressed, now about this point, I stopped worrying about wonders. My goal was to build to the into the industrial era, and then once I got to about here, I had a couple of great scientists available. I immediately pursued plastics so that I could get research labs and hydro plants, right? Which research labs give you additional science, 50% science in the city you build the research lab in. And with 3 cities, that gave me an extra 150 to 200 science per turn, which made me much more competitive. And fortunately for me, he made a mistake. He ended up pursuing atomic theory. He kept building. He built the Sydney Opera House, which by that point in the game, I actually think Sydney Opera House comes way too late in the game, because by the time you get to here, because of the science, the way the science victories are worked, the game's almost over by this point. By the time you get to here, the game's almost over. Um, once I can research that tech, I mean, seriously, the game is almost done. So, the point is that wonders can be a huge help to your game. Now, to recap, what he did was the Great Library, the Oracle. So the Great Library gives you one scientist point, one culture point. The Great Oracle gives you 3 culture, another great scientist point, and a free social policy. So that helped him. Hagia Sophia, 25% generation of great people in all cities, and a free great person of your choice near the capital. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty substantial. The Porcelain Tower, another 2 great scientist points, and a great scientist appears near the city where the wonder was built. And he didn't use the research agreement portion of it, but if he had, there was an AI, he could have. He would have been even more of a threat. But you see how all of the wonders that he pursued they kind of worked together in harmony to help him build his science faster. So, even though I disagree with the whole pottery, writing, great library, if you follow it up, if you back up that original philosophy, if you do decide to go this route, you almost have to continue pursuing the other. If you go this way and then abandon wonders, or you continue pursuing these wonders but don't get them, then you've kind of, at that point, you've kind of screwed yourself. But if you can continue along that path, get the Great Oracle, get Hagia Sophia. This one would kind of help you, but wouldn't be as beneficial. Hagia, Chichen Itza. Get the Porcelain Tower. Then that combination of wonders would be very powerful. But you also have to remember that no matter what your situation is in the game, if you think your way through it, by this point, by turn 150, I was almost 10% behind in science. He had obviously claimed so many great scientists that he was just able to hammer himself into the lead. Now, my science must have been higher than his, and that enabled me to not fall farther than that behind. What was happening is he would make these leaps and bounds, and then I would, because my science was higher, I would slowly start to catch up. He would get more great scientists and then make another surge, but then I would catch up, I'd start to catch up. And then because I pursued, I was able to kind of compete with him because of my science was higher, but because I pursued plastics, I had 3 great scientists, and I used 2 of them, one for refrigeration, one for plastics. When I got to that point, as soon as I possibly could, then I grabbed plastics, built research labs, built hydro plants, and that made me much more competitive. By that point, no matter how many great scientists he was still producing, I was able to, stay ahead of him. And because my focus was on robotics, rocketry, satellites, on getting the science victory, and I did not research any technologies other than that until until after I completed nanotechnology, I was able to get the win. But it was a very tight race the whole game, and if he hadn't, I don't know if he did nuclear fission or not. I don't know if he was pursuing that, but he didn't focus on getting the techs to complete the Apollo program. And like 3 or 4 turns after he finally completed the Apollo program, I had everything built, and for the spaceship, and I just pursued the win. So the question is, how do you make sure you get the wonders you want? Well, if you have a great scientist or two, that's one way you can assure. And typically what I do with great scientists is either save them for the end, so that I can, instead of going rocketry, satellites, and then coming back and doing computers, robotics, what I do is, I'll complete these 3, and then I'll do, or actually these 2, maybe 3, and then I'll do computers, robotics, because I want to build the spaceship factories, and I also want the win to be a surprise. If you do rocketry first, then satellites, or if you do rocketry and then start pursuing, when you complete the Apollo program, it announces to every player, that you're getting close to, winning the game. But if you do computers, robotics, and then build spaceship factories while you're researching rocketry, by the time you research rocketry, finish the Apollo program, you've already got your spaceship factories built. You've got 3 SS boosters that you can build right away. And you don't necessarily have to put them, assemble the spaceship parts right away. You can kind of be a little sly about it and build them all at the same time, not too long after you've completed the Apollo program. Because by the time you complete the Apollo program, you're almost done researching satellites, and you're almost ready. And if you have a couple of more great scientists available, you can just pop them in and literally build all of your spaceship parts almost at the same time. So, but the other use for great scientists is to ensure that you can get the world wonders that you want. Let's say the other day, for example, I was playing a game where my happiness was a huge issue, and people were building wonders like crazy, like they always do, and I really wanted Notre Dame, right? And I had 2 great scientists available by this point. So what I did was, I researched civil service. I already had theology. I researched civil service with a great scientist. I researched education with a great scientist, because I wanted these texts, I wanted education anyway to help me build even more science, but I also was able to build Notre Dame. So I started building universities in my other cities right away, and I built Notre Dame and then a university in my capital. But because I had used two great scientists to achieve these techs, I felt relatively assured that I was going to beat anybody else who wanted to go for Notre Dame. And my happiness was so low that, you know, to me, Notre Dame was very important. I really wanted to get it. So, you know, that's one way that you can assure yourself of getting a a wonder. And wonders should always, like I said, I think I said this before. Wonders should always be planned for, right? When I first started playing this game, I would always research these four technologies first because they were the cheapest. And in my head, you know, if I could do this one in 5 turns, and then this one took 8 or 9, but this one was also 5 turns, then I would, well, it just seemed more sensible to choose this one over this one. Well, there are advantages to, you know, doing it out of turn and kind of reaching ahead. And one of the biggest reasons to do that is to target a wonder. So, and just like the other thing that you want to do, I think it's too early in the game at this point. But when you, like, let's say you research metal casting, right? And you build workshops, right? You want to turn those workshops on. If you want to compete in the Wonder Race, you want to do two things. You want to get to this point and turn workshops on in your cities, but you also want to pursue earlier in the game. You want to pursue engineer points. Let's see if I can find one with engineer points. I have a list of wonders. Pursue engineer points from earlier wonders. Anger Watt gives you an engineer point, and that is theology. So Anger Watt, yeah, Anger Watt is right there. You can pursue that. That'll give you an engineer point. Where else? Civil Chichen Itza, which is civil service, right there. That gives you an engineer point. The Great Wall gives you an engineer point. Himeji Castle, which is in chivalry. That gives you 3 cultures and 2 engineer points, right? And the reason why you're pursuing, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that you pursue all of these, but you want to pursue, you know, at least two of them. Like this one, Himeji Castle is the best for engineer points. You get 2 engineer points. If you get the Hagia Sophia in combination with the Himeji Castle, you can build great engineers, which will help you be able to build even more. You know, once you get a few great, you know, if you're producing great engineers, they help you build your wonders faster. So you could produce even more, or you know, accomplish even more world wonders, and you don't have to hard build them. You're using engineers to build them. So there's just different strategies with wonders. I highly recommend coming up with, and putting your mind to it, studying your wonders, and developing combinations of wonders that you can pursue, to give yourself an arsenal when you're playing the games. And ultimately your goal in every case is to try and win, and by pursuing wonders is one of the ways that you can do it. Now, like I was telling you in the one that I won the other day, I pursued Sistine Chapel, the Louvre, and I was pursuing culture-based wonders because, as I've told you before, culture can equal science, and I wanted to counter what he was doing, because he already had Hagia Sophia. He already had all of these great scientist points and great people generation wonders. So there was nothing. It was too late for me to stop him from getting them by that point. He already had them, so I had to counter that. And like I was saying before, culture can equal science. Well, what I did was, by that point, I had 3 policies in the Liberty Tree. I abandoned pursuing liberty any further. I pursued rationalism. I focused on rationalism, and I built my culture per turn up so that I could get policies faster in the rationalism tree. And when I started actually being able to get these wonders that improved my culture, he was ahead of me. He had already finished tradition. I think he only did I think he skipped liberty altogether, so he must have policy saved and then went to rationalism as soon as he could when he got into Renaissance. So he already had one of these policies in the Renaissance era. But I quickly was able to pass him up, because every 10 turns or so I was able to get another policy, because I had built my culture up high enough to do that. So for every situation, there can be a counter strategy developed, and if you understand what all of your different wonders do, you can grasp combinations and develop a strategy to counter what your opponents are doing. But in order to accomplish that, you really do have to kind of study your wonders and what they'll do for you. All right, with that being said, I'm gonna close off this video, and the next video I'm gonna go through some different mid-game strategies, probably having to do more with military, if you run into military situations. Don't forget to smash the like button, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.